The velvet silence of the DeCavalcante estate in New Jersey always felt like a warning. For 12 months, I had mastered the art of the ghost, arranging crystal and silk with a precision that was elegant, expensive, and entirely invisible. I smoothed my black server's dress, checking my reflection in the polished silver tray. My hair was pinned in a tight, professional knot, not a stray strand, just the way Antonio demanded. I wasn't naive. You didn't rule the Garden State's underworld without blood on your hands. But this job paid the medical debts keeping my brother alive. By 8 p.m., the dining room was a masterpiece of geometric precision. The guests arrived like a storm front, dark suits and heavy footsteps. Among them was Yuri Medved, a man whose expensive cologne couldn't mask the scent of cruelty. As I poured the vintage Barolo, I felt Antonio's eyes on me. He sat with the controlled authority of a king, his sharp gaze sweeping the room. I kept my head down, a shadow at the edge of the mahogany table, even as the men switched to a harsh dialect of Russian. They assumed I was just part of the furniture. "You have a fine eye for assets, Antonio," sneered in Russian, his gaze crawling over me like a physical touch. "But this one, she's wasted on housework. She's just a maid. Give her to my men for the night as a peace offering." The room turned to ice. Antonio, famous for his lethal composure, slammed his hand onto the table. Before logic could catch his rage, he snarled in a voice that shattered our cover. "Take your hands off her. She's not a maid. She's my wife." The words detonated like a grenade. Every eye turned to me, and I felt the diamond ring beneath my uniform burn against my skin. The ring I'd worn on a chain for 6 months, hidden from everyone except the priest who'd married us at 3 in the morning. My story started in Newark, where my father's gambling debts consumed everything. When Yuri's collectors came, they offered a choice: work as a servant in Antonio's estate, or watch my brother's medical care vanish. I took the job. I became invisible. For 12 months, I perfected silence. I learned which floorboards creaked, which rooms held deadly secrets. I poured wine for men who discussed murder over dessert. I was furniture with a pulse, and I survived by being forgettable. But Antonio noticed me. It started with a thank you for coffee at 2 a.m., then conversations that grew from 3 minutes to 30. He was New Jersey's most dangerous man, and he treated me like I was human. The marriage happened 4 months in. Yuri's collector had gotten aggressive, asking about my payment schedule. Antonio pulled me into his study, his face stone. "They're going to kill you. Your father's debt is unpayable. They've been stringing you along. Yuri's trafficking network moves girls through Newark monthly. You were always the product, never the debtor." What do I do? "Marry me. Tonight. Secret ceremony. It's the only protection Yuri can touch. A wife has legal standing. A maid has nothing." "Why would you do that?" "Because you're the only person who asked if I needed sugar in my coffee. And because I can." We married in secret. I returned to serving dinner with a ring on a chain and a name no one knew I carried. Until tonight, when Yuri's comment made Antonio forget every careful plan. If you can't stand people who treat others as disposable pawns in their power games, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Type, "Nobody deserves that." Because what happened next only got worse. Antonio's face shifted from rage to realization. Yuri Medved leaned back, smiling like a predator. "Wife,
How deliciously unexpected. And here I thought you were smart enough to keep your weaknesses hidden. This meeting is over, Antonio stood. Marco, show our guests out. Oh no. Yuri rose slowly. This changes everything. A man with a wife has something to lose. A wife hidden like a shameful secret? That's vulnerability I can exploit. He looked at me directly. Thank you for the wine, Mrs. DeCavalcante. We'll be seeing each other very soon. The Russians left with predatory confidence. When the door closed, Marco exploded. You married the help? Do you understand what you've done? Careful, Antonio warned. You're talking about my wife. Your wife who's been serving dinner while we discussed business. Marco's face purpled. Every family will see this as weakness. And Medved? The other capos made excuses and left. Within 48 hours, half would call their families questioning Antonio's stability. The others would call Yuri, testing new alliances. When we were alone, Antonio turned to me, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear. Not for himself, for me. I'm sorry. I had a year to control myself. One comment and I destroyed everything. You protected me, my voice steadied. Like always. I put a target on your back. His hands cupped my face. Yuri knows exactly how to hurt me now. Then we adapt. I pulled the ring from beneath my uniform, slipping it onto my finger where it belonged. No more hiding. If I'm your wife, I'm your wife. If that makes me a target, we make me one that shoots back. Something shifted in his expression. You have no idea what you're saying. Then teach me. I survived 12 months being invisible. Maybe it's time to see what I can do when people actually see me. Moving to the master suite happened before dawn. Antonio's men carried my 3 boxes upstairs, while staff watched from doorways. The suite was bigger than my family's entire apartment, with bulletproof windows overlooking the estate. This is temporary, I tried to convince myself, until the threat passes. Josephine, Antonio caught my hand. There is no until. Yuri knows. By morning, every family will know. This is permanent. By 7 a.m., Marco arrived with security specialists. By noon, I had protection detail. 2 former Marines who followed everywhere. By evening, I sat at Antonio's right hand during a meeting with his inner circle, instead of serving drinks. The men looked at me like an unsolvable problem. Antonio's voice cut through murmurs. Meet Josephine DeCavalcante, my wife of 6 months. She's now part of this family's leadership. She'll be briefed on all operations. Anyone with problems can leave. Nobody moved, but calculations happened behind their eyes. If you believe loyalty and love are stronger than cruelty and control, hit that subscribe button. People like Yuri won't, and you need to hear what I did about it. Antonio's education was baptism by fire. 3 weeks of shipping manifest hiding weapons, union contracts funneling money, political donations buying protection, the violence enforcing it all. 18% of consumer goods entering New Jersey, Antonio explained. We control the longshoremen's union. That means we control what gets lost, what customs inspects, what moves through. Drugs, I said quietly. Yuri moves drugs. We move opportunities. His mouth twisted. Don't confuse me for a saint. Everything here was built on blood. The difference between me and Medved is I have rules. The rules were specific. No trafficking, no uncontrolled poison, no civilian hits, no business hurting children. Antonio's code made him almost noble in this world. My protection detail became my shadow. Marcus and Chen followed everywhere with military precision. The first attempt came on day 5, a delivery driver who was Yuri's man with a hidden weapon. Marcus spotted him before the gate. The interrogation revealed 3 other planned attempts. He's probing defenses, Marco explained, testing response times, looking for patterns, planning something bigger. Then we move her, a capo suggested, safe house until this blows over. No, my voice surprised everyone. Running makes me look weak. Yuri wants Antonio to hide me, prove I'm a liability. I won't give him that. Antonio studied me. She's right. We fortify here. Josephine stays visible. Let Yuri see threatening her makes us stronger. But visibility had costs. Staff treated me with careful formality. Old colleagues stopped returning calls. Even my father sounded terrified when I tracked him down. Josie, what have you done? The DeCavalcantes? Do you know what people say? I'm surviving, Dad, like I've been doing since you gambled everything away. Silence, thick with guilt. I'm sorry, but you have to understand, I owe money to people, bad people. The Russians came last week asking about you. My blood chilled. Where are you staying? The old Newark apartment, but I'm gonna lay low. Don't. Stay there. I'm sending people. You're coming here. My father lasted 3 days before becoming a problem. Not from anything he did, but from who he was. A walking vulnerability everyone could see. Marco said it in morning briefing. Your father's a liability. Every gambler in Newark knows he's here. That means Yuri knows. Then we protect him. We're already protecting you, the estate, 18 operations. Resources aren't infinite. Before we could plan, the decision was made for us. Tuesday afternoon, my father's phone rang. Marcus burst into the study, face grim. It's your father's phone, but he's upstairs. Someone else has it. I answered on speaker. Josephine Shaver or DeCavalcante? Yuri's voice filled the room. I believe we have something of yours. That's impossible. But Antonio was already moving toward the guest wing. Yuri laughed. Check again. Your father got a call claiming to be you. Emergency at his apartment. Guards refused to take him. But gamblers understand odds and how to climb out second-story windows. Antonio's hand cracked the desk. Absolutely not. It's a trap. I know. I grabbed the gun he taught me to use. But he's my father. So you let Yuri kill you instead, Marco snapped. Then let him think he's won. I met Antonio's eyes. Understanding passed between us. I'm buying time. Time for what? Time for you to be smarter than him. You've been planning contingencies, haven't you? His mouth twitched. Always. But it requires complete trust and convincing fear when you walk into that warehouse. I won't have to act, I admitted. I am scared. Good. We're about to teach Yuri what happens when he underestimates a maid. The Elizabeth warehouse was industrial graveyard territory. I drove alone, no visible guards, just the tracker in my watch Marco installed. Inside, my father was tied to a chair, face bloody. Yuri stood beside him like a conductor, 5 armed men behind. Mrs. DeCavalcante, punctual, Yuri smiled. Your father and I discussed family loyalty. How does it feel knowing he sold you to pay gambling debts? Ancient history, I kept steady. Let him go. This is between you and Antonio. No, this is about natural order. Antonio elevated a servant to queen and expected respect. You're an insult to this business, every rule making our world function. And yet, here you are, spending resources on kidnapping instead of business. Who's weak now? His hand cracked across my face, ears ringing. My father screamed through his gag. Yuri's smile never wavered. You're going to call your husband. Tell him you'll be released when he signs over everything north of Route 3. If he refuses, he pressed a knife to my father's throat. I start sending pieces of people you love. I counted heartbeats, distance to each guard, seconds Antonio needed. He wouldn't let me walk in alone. He'd have men surrounding this building, waiting for the signal. You made a mistake, Medved, I said quietly, switching to Russian. You assumed helplessness, but my husband doesn't protect weakness, he weaponizes it. Yuri's expression flickered. Then the lights went out.
The warehouse plunged into darkness. Red laser sights appeared on Yuri's men. I dropped flat. Gunfire erupted. 15 seconds of controlled violence. When lights returned, Yuri was on his knees, surrounded. My father was being freed. Antonio stood in the doorway, expression colder than death. You touched my wife, threatened for father, used her love as a weapon. He stopped before Yuri. Fatal miscalculation. You can't kill me. The Bratva will. The Bratva signed off an hour ago. They're tired of your independent streak. They wanted you gone, just needed someone else to do it. Yuri's face cycled through denial, rage, fear. Antonio had outmaneuvered him completely. Josephine, your choice. He threatened you. By our laws, the decision is yours. I stood slowly. This was the line I never thought I'd cross, taking life not in self-defense, but judgment. I walked forward. You called me weak because I was a maid, saw service as submission. But you know what I learned serving your meals? Patience, watching, waiting, choosing my moment. Violence is easy. Surviving takes skill you'll never understand. I stepped back. Antonio, end this.
Yuri's death should have ended it. But organizations fracture into pieces, sometimes more dangerous than the whole. 3 weeks later, Antonio's phone rang at 4 a.m. Marco's voice was tight. We've been hit. Port Newark shipment, 3 trucks intercepted, 2 drivers dead, $500,000 in merchandise gone. Yuri's lieutenants making their move. Antonio dressed in under 2 minutes, but this time he brought me to the war room. If they're hitting shipments, they have inside information, Antonio said. Someone's feeding them intelligence. The capos shifted uncomfortably. A mole was cancer from within. We need background checks, monitor communications, Marco started. That takes too long. I'd been studying the map. I have a better idea. Every eye turned. For a year, I was invisible here. I heard things people said when they thought no one listened. Give me access to household accounts, service schedules, security logs. If someone's betraying you, their routine changed. Small things, the kind only someone who tracked every detail would notice. Antonio considered, then nodded. Give her everything. 2 days buried in data. I knew the gardener ordered supplies Wednesdays. Night shift rotated every 6 hours. Kitchen placed orders on unchanging schedules. Someone had broken pattern. Here, I pulled up bank records, cross-referenced with schedules. Thomas Ricci, security detail, 8 years, model employee. But 3 months ago, cash deposits started. Small amounts, never triggering alerts. His patrol route changed. He requested East Perimeter, covering the service entrance. The blind spot. Antonio's face darkened. Thomas. I trusted him with my life.
Yuri got to him, probably threatened family. I showed surveillance. Every time he patrols that section, he disables the camera at 90 seconds. That's the window for placing tracking devices. Marco was already ordering Ricci's arrest, but I wasn't finished. Thomas couldn't have known Port Newark timing unless someone higher up told him, someone with operational access. The temperature dropped 20 degrees. Antonio's inner circle was small, trusted. "Josephine," Antonio warned, "be very sure." I pulled up more records. "Vincent Calabrese, your shipping coordinator. He's been skimming, hidden in accounting errors. Timing matches Yuri's hits. Every intercepted shipment was one Vincent scheduled." Vincent stood slowly. His hand moved toward his jacket. Marcus had his weapon drawn first. The room exploded. Vincent forced against the wall as Marco searched him. They found the burner phone, encrypted messages, evidence of deep betrayal. "Why?" Antonio whispered. "I made you rich." "Rich?" Vincent laughed bitterly. "I was a worker bee. Yuri offered me my own kingdom, territory, respect, everything you never gave. I gave you loyalty, family, trust. You gave me servitude." Vincent's eyes found me. "Just like her. She understands being the help, being invisible, being beneath you." "No," I said quietly. "I understand servitude and service aren't the same. I chose being part of something bigger. You chose betrayal. There's a difference." They came 3 days later, Friday night. Antonio was in Atlantic City. I was home with skeleton security, reviewing new protocols. The first explosion took out the front gate at 11 p.m. The second shattered east wing windows. By the third, I was on the phone with Marco, gun in hand. "Full assault," Marco shouted over gunfire. "At least 20 men, heavy weapons. We're 15 minutes out." "I don't have 15 minutes." Figures moved through smoke. "Get Antonio. Tell him I love him, just in case." I hung up before he could argue. The security team was good, but outgunned. Yuri's remaining lieutenants committed everything to this final strike. I found Maria and 3 staff members. "Wine cellar. Now, there's a panic room Antonio installed. Biometric lock. Go." I sealed them inside, then faced battle sounds creeping closer. I'd spent a year learning every secret passage, hidden corridor, architectural quirk. If I couldn't fight head-on, I'd make them chase ghosts. The laundry chute carried me down 2 floors. Servants' stairwell took me behind their line. The dumbwaiter lifted me into walls they didn't know existed. I was the house, and the house was me. I dropped smoke grenades from vents, cut power sections to leave them blind, used the intercom to whisper directions sending them into dead ends. Guerrilla warfare fought by a Maid who knew where every shadow fell. Eventually, they cornered me. 5 men, automatic weapons. The leader was scarred Dmitri, Yuri's former enforcer. "Mrs. DeCavalcante, your husband's weakness delivered." I stood behind Antonio's desk. "You know what's funny? Everyone calls me Antonio's weakness, but I'm still standing while you're bleeding territory. Brave words for a man who's dead. Stupid assumptions for a man who didn't check the desk." I pulled the trigger on the shotgun mounted beneath, rigged to fire waist height across the room. The blast caught 3. The others dove for cover. Then Antonio kicked down the door with Marco and 30 men. The fury in Antonio's eyes was biblical. When smoke cleared and bodies were counted, he looked at me like seeing me for the first time. "You fortified the house. I lived here a year as a maid. I know every weakness. So I fixed them. Hidden weapons, panic rooms, defensive positions. 3 weeks and full access. I made this place a fortress." He pulled me against his chest. "You magnificent, insane woman!"
The final pieces of Yuri's organization collapsed over the next month. His lieutenants either swore loyalty to Antonio or disappeared into the kind of graves Jersey specialized in. The Northern Syndicate's attempt to exploit Antonio's weakness backfired spectacularly. Instead of vulnerability, they discovered a united front twice as dangerous. Word spread through the families like wildfire. Antonio DeCavalcante's wife put a bullet in Yuri Medved's organization. Overnight, I transformed from just a maid to the woman who defended an estate against 20 armed men and won. 3 months later, Antonio held a second wedding, not hidden at 3 a.m., but at the estate, with every family boss from Philadelphia to Providence attending. I wore white silk and the diamond ring that spent too long hidden. When Antonio introduced me, his voice carried absolute certainty across the lawn. My wife, my partner, the queen of this family. Marco stood as best man, though he still looked at me sometimes like an unsolvable puzzle. My father, recovered and cleaner than he'd been in years, walked me down the aisle with tears in his eyes. My brother watched from his wheelchair, finally healthy, his medical bills stamped paid in full. The reception was a master class in power dynamics. Family bosses who'd questioned Antonio's judgment 3 months ago now approached me with careful respect. Their wives treated me like royalty, understanding I'd earned my crown in blood rather than inheriting it through birth. As the sun set over the Garden State, Antonio pulled me onto the dance floor. The string quartet played something classical and elegant, the kind of music that belonged in this world of expensive suits and dangerous secrets. "Any regrets?" he whispered against my ear. I thought about the girl who arrived here with nothing but debt and desperation, the woman I'd become, forged in fire, crowned in blood, tempered by love that refused to make me small. "Not one," I whispered back. "Though I do miss the uniform sometimes. It made sneaking around easier." His laugh was quiet, meant only for me. "You can wear it whenever you want, Mrs. DeCavalcante, though these days you're more dangerous out of it."
Through the windows, the New Jersey skyline lit up like a promise. Somewhere in that sprawl of cities and secrets, someone would eventually try to take what we'd built. Someone would look at me and see what Yuri saw, a woman who didn't belong, a weakness to exploit, a maid playing at royalty. Let them come. I'd learned the most important lesson this life taught. The crown doesn't make the queen makes the crown. And I'd earned mine the hardest way possible, one invisible moment at a time, until I stopped being invisible and became unforgettable. Antonio squeezed my hand 3 times, our private code for 3 words I still hadn't said aloud, but showed him daily in 100 ways. I squeezed back 4 times, 3 words plus 1 more. I love you too. Because in the end, that's what made us unbeatable. Not guns or guards or the empire stretching across the Garden State, but the simple truth Yuri could never understand. Power is temporary, but real love, the kind that sees you at your lowest and says, "I choose you anyway," that's eternal. And eternal is a very long time to rule.